in search of the lost manuscripts of the Ohr-Somayach. Now, this is a research that I'm doing recently, and it is, I found it very interesting, so I thought of sharing it with you. So, first of all, the Ohr-Somayach was Rabbi Meir Simcha of Dvinsk. He lived between 1843 and 1926. And he wrote his famous books, Ohr-Somayach on the Maimonides and Meshech Chochma on the Torah. And I'm just going to tell a few stories about him, and then we are going to go on the journey. So, first of all, he was the rabbi of Dvinsk in and he during World War I, Dvinsk was bombed, and many people left the city because it was so dangerous. And they asked him, "Aren't you going to leave the city? Aren't you going to be saved?" So he said, "That as long as there'll be 9 Jews in Dvinsk, I am going to be the 10th, in order that there'll be a minyan." And he also said, "But I'm not scared of any bombs or any bullets, because with every bomb has got an address to it. And since and only when it's my time to leave the world, I'm going to leave the world." So he gave the people of Dvinsk a lot of strength. He was a great Talmid Chacham. Many responses were sent to him, and he was a very big authority, halachic authority, and especially on the Maimonides. So he also wrote a manuscript on the Talmud, and this is actually the topic of our shiur, in search of those manuscripts. So for many years, the common belief was that his manuscripts on the Talmud were lost forever. The belief was that they were lost in the Holocaust. And Rabbi Shlomo Zevin, who was the first editor of the Encyclopedia Talmudit, the Talmudic encyclopedia, which I hope that someday they will translate it into English. And it's probably going to take them 50 years to do it, because there's like
one book at a time.
What?
One book at a time.
That's right.
Either that, or just have a bunch of people working on different books at the same time.
Mm-hmm. There's over 42 volumes in the Hebrew, and they only got to a half of the alphabet. So there's supposed to be like 90 volumes or something in the Hebrew. And as you know, in every translation from a Hebrew to English, it is about a double in English. So it's supposed to be like 180 volumes. It could have filled a whole library. Because each volume is this thick. It's so.
Talmud. which goes into very great detail. It's about 135 volumes total.
If it didn't translate it,
No, it's not
to English
translated,
yet.
but I'm just saying, like,
Right,
the Talmud is itself,
right.
big. So
That's right.
a very comprehensive overview of the Talmud would be
That's
something
right.
like that, 150
Yeah,
volumes.
yeah. Yeah, so anyhow, eh, Rabbi Zevin, so he wrote about, he has got a book about the biographies and the methods of a study called Ishim Veshitot. And he, in this chapter about Rabbi Meir Simcha of Yadvinsk, so he wrote that he also wrote Ohr-Somayach on the Talmud, but it disappeared. So, nevertheless, in a miraculous way, and from Ashkacha Pratit, the manuscripts on the Talmud survived the Holocaust and were discovered in different places around the world. So, in this shiur, in the first part of the shiur, we are going to advance on a journey in search of the lost manuscripts, and we are going to try and trace the paths that they were taken until they were published. So our first station is Riga. You could see on the page there's a little picture of Riga. Right? Yes. So Riga's in Latvia, and this was the last place where the manuscripts were seen. Okay? And how is this so? Because that Rabbi Meir Simcha of Yadvinsk, he passed away in the hospital of Riga, and right before he passed away, he gave all his manuscripts to Rabbi Menachem Mendel Zaks, the rabbi of Riga, and he told him if he could do him the greatest favor in the world and to publish his manuscripts, and he also gave him a sum of money to do so. So Rabbi Menachem Mendel managed to publish 2 books. You could see them in the picture. The Ohr-Somayach on the Maimonides. Okay, it was published in 1926. Just when, just at the same year when Rabbi Meir Simcha passed away, and also the Meshech Chochma on the Torah. Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify this.
Yes.
This script is complete, right? There is no missing.
Of the Meshech Chochma
Yeah.
and the Ohr-Somayach, right.
Okay.
But concerning the manuscript on the Talmud, that is a different story. It isn't complete. We're going to talk about that. So, however, Rabbi Zaks, he made sure to copy the rest of the manuscripts, and he planned to publish them as well. However, meanwhile, the Red Army, they conquered the city in 1940, and they stole all the money that Rabbi Zaks he collected to publish the rest of the manuscripts. And And in 1941, the Nazis conquered the city and they looted the Jewish books and all the manuscripts they found. And from then on, the manuscripts disappeared. And we are going to try and trace them. Okay?
It's real research.
Yes, it is. I was really researching this and had to contact many people as well.
It's funny coincidence. I was just looking up yesterday a list of Achronim, and there were only 2 or 3 names that I didn't recognize, and one of them was the Ohr-Somayach.
Wow.
So it was perfect timing.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you, Dor, we are going on a journey in search of the lost manuscripts of Ohr-Somayach. And the first station was Riga, the last place where those manuscripts have been seen. And now we're going to try and trace them because the Nazis eluded them, and we're going to try and find out where they took them and then what happened to them afterwards. I am just going to give you a spoiler, but the manuscripts have been found in different places all over the world. It's a really interesting story how each manuscript ended up in a different place.
When were they found?
We're going to see it. We're going to see it momentarily. Okay? Okay. So, but let's go to our second station. Our second station is Ohr-Somayach, Poland. Okay? Now, if I lived in a Kuvrin, a prodigy called Rabbi Yosef Tzvi Davidovsky. And he wrote the book Imre Yosef on Maimonides, and he was very close to the Ohr-Somayach. And the Ohr-Somayach allowed him to copy one of his manuscripts,
You said Imre Emet?
the Imre Yosef.
Imre Yosef.
Yes. So the Ohr-Somayach allowed him to copy one of his manuscripts on a Baba Kama, the tractates of Baba Kama and the Baba Metzia. So unfortunately, he passed away in Ohr-Somayach. It is a city in the center of Poland, and his wife, she succeeded to escape Europe, and she took those manuscripts with her to Eretz Israel. So she actually saved those manuscripts. When she got over here, she married Rabbi Charlap, who was the Rav of Sharei Chesed, and very close to Rav Kook. He was also the Rosh Yeshiva of Merkaz Rav, and his grandchildren, Rabbi Yezavulun Zakash, and his brother Rabbi Nisan Zakash, were actually one of the great grandchildren of Rav Charlap, lives here in Givat Shaul. I met him. his name is also Zakash. So they, he took that manuscript that was copied by Rabbi Davidovsky, and they published it. And you could see over here in the second station, this is a picture from Otrok in Poland, and then next to it, in year Tashach, 1948, they published one of the lost manuscripts of the Ohr-Somayach. So we could think about it, that if Rabbi Davidovsky wouldn't have copied the manuscript, of course with the permission of the Ohr-Somayach, it wouldn't have been published in the year 1948. So this is the first story. First story about it.
So
yes.
Ohr-Somayach is basically on the Rambam and Mishnah Torah, while the Meshech Chachma is just on the Chumash.
That's right, but he also has manuscripts on the Talmud, and those manuscripts have been lost after the Nazis looted the city of Riga, because they took the manuscript, except this manuscript that she was able to leave Europe and bring it to Eretz Yisrael to have it published here by Rav Charlap's grandchildren. Okay, so this is our second station. However, she only saved 2 tractates of the Baba Kama and the Baba Metzia. What happened to the other tractates of the Talmud? What happened to the other manuscripts?
How do we even know he wrote other tractates?
So we do know, because in his book Ohr-Somayach on the Maimonides, if it has been published before, the first publication was already in 1926. So he writes in many places, look in my commentary on the Talmud, on the tractate Yevamot, on the tractate Echulin, in many places. So he says, look at what I wrote. But for many years, nobody had those manuscripts. So they were lost. So also the complete understanding of the Ohr-Somayach has been lacking, because that nobody could really understand what he wrote, because that he said, look at my Chidushim, but nobody had them. So we have to do here some detective work, okay?
Yeah.
We have to go back to where was the last place that the manuscripts have been seen. Does anyone remember?
In Latvia?
Riga, right? The city of Riga.
The first one.
What happened to them, right?
Burning
That's right. They were looted by the Nazis. Now, what did the Nazis do with all of the books and manuscripts that they looted? Does anyone know?
Burn it, no?
They didn't burn it.
They wanted to make like a museum.
That's right.
Of the Jews, and they wanted to put them in like a museum. So I guess they stored
That's
them
right.
somewhere.
That's right. They stole over 3 million books. 3 million books, and they shipped everything to a couple of places in Europe, but some places in Germany, and some places in Lithuania. But now we're going to go to our third station, from Offenbach to Jerusalem. Okay. Now, first of all, they, as I said, they looted Riga in 1941, and they sent those manuscripts to two places. Okay, the first place that we're going to talk about now, to a city called Hungen in Germany. They were what?
It says Offenbach.
That's right. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to Offenbach. But first to Hungen. They were taken first to Frankfurt, and then they transferred it to Hungen. Now, when the Americans conquered the area, they discovered all these books. And they didn't know what to do with all these books, so they found a very big warehouse in Offenbach, okay, and they stored all of the books and all the manuscripts over there. This is a story, what happened there, how the books were sorted out and cataloged. They wanted to return them to their rightful owners, and some of the books were able to return, but many of the books they just stayed there for many years. Now, does anyone know the National Library?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's the National Library over here in a Givat Ram. In those days, it of course wasn't in a Givat Ram, it was in a Har Tzofim, because it belonged to the Hebrew University. And they heard that there is Cecil Roth. Has anyone heard of a Cecil Roth? He was a British historian, a very famous British historian, and he heard that all these books have been looted, and he said that we have to do something to save these books, because some of the books and manuscripts about these were the only copies. Okay, for example, the manuscripts of the Ohr-Somayach, as we are soon going to see, if it wasn't preserved there in Offenbach, so it would have been lost forever. And soon we are going to see about it. Now, so the National Library, they asked to have the books which the owners haven't been traced. And in 1949, and just in 1949, they were allowed to have 120,000 of these books. Okay? Now, one of those 120,000 books and manuscripts was the manuscript of the Ohr-Somayach. Okay? And however, it was nobody knew it was the manuscript of the the Ohr-Somayach. You could see over here on the over here is a picture of the city of Offenbach, okay, and then on the left-hand side here is a picture of a manuscript of the Ohr-Somayach. However, nobody knew that it was the manuscript of the Ohr-Somayach because it didn't say his name on it. It didn't say his name. And for many years, until 1966, it was just lying there in the warehouses of the National Library, just in a box, and nobody knew what it was until somebody called David Greenwald. He, with a siyata dishmaya, he was allowed to look at the manuscripts, and then he looked at this manuscript and he said, "This seems very familiar, because when I studied the Ohr-Somayach on the Maimonides, and it is the same style." So he decided to research it more, and he found that in the Ohr-Somayach, as we mentioned the year before, on the Maimonides, so he says, look at my a commentary on the Talmud. Look in the Tractate of Yevamot and everything. So he looked at the Tractate of Yevamot, and it was the same thing. And there were pieces from here that were copied into the Ohr-Somayach on the Maimonides. So we knew this was the original manuscript of the Ohr-Somayach on the Talmud. And this was already on many tractates. It was on a Tractate of Yevamot, Kiddushin, Nedarim, Nazir, many tractates. And he found the 2 volumes. He actually found the 2 volumes. I've got over here one of the volumes that he published based on this manuscript. So this was a found. Okay. Now our journey hasn't come to its end yet, because that there were a few manuscripts, and there were actually at least 3 manuscripts. Okay, so the first manuscript, does anyone remember? That's right. It was on a Baba Kama, and it was brought to Eretz Yisrael from Otrok. Okay, over here, this is the first manuscript. The second manuscript was Offenbach. Okay, he brought it to Jerusalem to the National Library. But there was a third manuscript that was that was brought to New York. Okay, Rabbi Avraham Asband, the Rosh Yeshiva of Telz. Okay, he published, based on a manuscript that he found, which soon we're going to talk about it, that he published the commentary of Ohr-Somayach on a tractate, Psachim and Sukkah. And and he writes in his introduction that he found it in the library of YIVO in New York. Okay? And the big question is, how did this manuscript arrive in YIVO, New York? How did it get there? No. YIVO is an organization that preserves Eastern European Jewish culture. It was founded actually in 1925 in Vilna. Okay, soon we're going to talk about Vilna. But so he found it. Now, today, I wrote him a letter to an email it to see if I could get more information about it. But I am going to share with you what I think about how this manuscript reached New York. But does anyone have any suggestion? How do you think it reached in New York?
Somebody who is running to New York, I guess, I don't know when, but maybe sometime in the 20s, 30s, was leaving the Vilna, had it with them, and brought it to New York.
Okay. Well, any other suggestions? How do you think it had reached to New York?
The Rabbi mentioned about someone is shipping like 3 million books, right? Jewish books.
The Nazis, they eluded 3 million books.
They ship it here to Israel?
No.
Where?
Only 120,000 were sent to Israel.
And where's the other?
So
maybe the books are there and somebody tried to save it and go to Europe or something.
Okay, so that is a good thinking. That is a good thinking.
Makes sense, because if they ship some of the parts of the book here in Israel, maybe there are some parts left there, and somebody pick it up and go to New York.
Okay, so that is a good thinking. We have to go back to when the Nazis looted the manuscripts in the first place. Okay, they in the first place they looted Riga, right? That was the last time where we know that the manuscripts of the Ohr-Somayach were located, right? And then the Nazis looted them, and some of the manuscripts they sent to Frankfurt, okay? But some of the manuscripts they sent to Vilna, to the YIVO institution, which they took over. They first used it as a barracks for the army, and then afterwards they decided to use the building in Vilna as a center to store all of these books. So at the end of the war, when the Russians came into Vilna, they took over this building and all these books, and eventually they were shipped to New York. Some of them were shipped to New York. So perhaps the manuscript of On Psachim and On Sukkah of Ohr-Somayach was looted by the Nazis when they conquered Riga, and then it was transported to Frankfurt, and then it was transported to Yvo Center in Vilna, and then after the Russians conquered it, it was smuggled out to the Yvo Center in New York. So this is what I think about it, how it arrived there. But I also contacted the Yvo Library in New York, and I also contacted Rabbi Avraham Asband, who published the book, to understand if he has more information about it. Okay, so this is actually the journey. Yes?
So there is no answer yet?
Not yet.
Oh.
I do not yet have a certain answer of what happened to it and how it got it, but we were able to trace three of those manuscripts. Okay, so if we are going to summarize our journey in search of the lost manuscripts of the Ohr-Somayach, they started off from Riga, okay, and then let's say Riga's over here, okay. One of those, sorry, this is a Riga, okay. There's the city of Otrok. Okay, so one of the manuscripts was in Otrok, brought to Eretz Israel, okay, and then from Riga to Offenbach and there to Israel, and then from Riga to Vilna, and then to New York. Okay, so now this is the first part of the lesson today. Yeah. Now that we learned about the history of the manuscripts of the Ohr-Somayach, let's now taste a bit of the gems of the Ohr-Somayach himself, okay? On the Talmud. So we could taste what we would have lost if it wasn't preserved, okay? And what we gained because that it was preserved, okay? So I was debating what to choose because there's so many volumes now, Baruch Hashem. So I decided to study with you something short, something very short, that is connected to a shiur that we had it together just 2 weeks ago. You remember the shiur of the secret of Tosfot,
yeah.
The secret of a Tosfot. So we there in the shiur we talked about the Gemara in the Shabbat about Rabbi Ishmael, that he said that before that Chachamim said that you aren't allowed to read in the light of a lamp on Shabbat, and if you're
not allowed to tilt.
Remember, right,
Because you're
not to
adding
tilt
more
it,
fuel,
okay?
fuel.
That's right. So in those days, the lamp looked like this, okay? This is how it looked, Okay, and you cannot tilt it because with the oil it is a slanted, and if the oil is a finished on one side, so one would like to tilt it in order to see it on the that the flame is going to be brighter. Okay, so this is what a Chazal said. However, he wants to read in the source 1 a tractate of a Shabbat.
Let me have
Yeah.
a taste of it.
Yeah.
Tractate Shabbat 12b. Said Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha, I will read and will not tilt. Yet once he read and wished to tilt. How great are the words of the sages. He exclaimed, who said, one must not read by the light of a lamp.
Okay, continue, yeah?
Rabbi Natan said, he read and did tilt it, and wrote in his notebook, I, Ishmael ben Elisha, did read and tilt the lamp on Shabbat. When the temple is rebuilt, I will bring a fat sin offering.
Okay, thanks. So, this is what you remember from 2 weeks ago that we talked about it. Now, what Rabbi Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, the Ohr-Somayach, does in his manuscript, he says that we have to look at the tractate of Chulin, because when he brings me a Tosfot, there's a Tosfot on the tractate of a Shabbat, and the Tosfot asks, wait, in the tractate of a Chulin, so it says that righteous people, a tzaddikim, so Hashem does not permit them to have any errors. He saves them from a sin. Okay? So, what question could you ask from the tractate of a Chulin on the tractate of a Shabbat that we just read?
Why the Rav Ishmael tilt the lamp and it's Shabbat, right?
That's right. But why wasn't he saved? Because it says in the tractate of Chulin, maybe we should read it first. Who wants to read a source of two? And then the question is going to be clearer. Source of 2.
It is difficult to understand how it should come about that such righteous men should eat something forbidden. If the Holy One, blessed be He, would not permit the beast of the righteous to sin in error, how much less the righteous themselves?
Okay, so what is the question? If you compare the tractate of a Shabbat and the tractate of a Chulin together, what a question appears?
In the first one,
I think, isn't it something about intentionally sinning?
Well, he didn't intentionally sin. The question is as follows. But Rabbi Natan said that he did read and did tilt it. Okay, that Rabbi Ishmael, he read and he also tilted. What do you say, Dil?
Maybe that in Shabbat, it's saying that he tilted and he tilted it. No, he read and then tilted it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Chulin is saying that Hashem wouldn't allow this righteous man to do something forbidden. So
That's right.
How could Hashem allow Rabbi Ishmael to do that?
That's right. Because it says in the tractate of Chulin that Hashem saves righteous people from a sin. Okay? So, how could it be, according to the view of Rabbi Natan, that he read and did tilt it? Because it is an Isur D'Oraita to tilt the lamp, okay? So how could it be that he read and it tilted it if Hashem should have protected him, right? So What answer could you answer?
Not righteous.
What?
They're not righteous.
No, I mean,
Well, he was righteous.
Yeah.
He was.
it says somehow that righteous may fall 7 times, but he will rise up again.
Okay. That is right. It does say that he will fall 7 times. What would be the style of answer? Now, always, if you have a question and you do not know what the answer would be, always try and think what kind of answer could there be? What style of answer? So if, for example, if there are two sources that contradict each other, how do you solve the contradiction? What is the style?
You bring in the third one.
Okay, that is a one option. That's right. To bring a third source, right? There's another style of answering such a contradiction. That you what?
Really, that if you look at like a thing like similar to it or next to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, to receive the context, and there's another way. It is called a koach achiluk. To assert that there is a distinction between both of those sources. That one source talked about one thing, and the other source talked about something else. So it is not a contradiction because it's two separate ideas. So the Tosfot, he tries to give an answer, and he says that there is a distinction. Okay, before I give it away, perhaps you try and find a distinction between the tractate of a Shabbat and the tractate of a Chulin. Yeah?
Maybe the Shabbat is the Chulin is a Doraita. Shabbat is the Rabbanan.
Well, a Shabbat is also a Doraita.
Yeah, but the thing about the tilting, it's a Rabbanan. And then by eating something forbidden.
The tilting is a Doraita.
It's a Doraita?
Yeah. But look at the nature of the sin. Okay? What kind of sin was it in a Shabbat, and what kind of sin was it in the Chulin? What was the nature of the sin?
Oh, one was Shogeg and
What?
Shogeg and like accidental purpose.
The
Okay, very good. This is something that we're going to talk about momentarily. Yes.
Yeah, I just noticed that the sin on the tractate Shabbat is punishable by death.
Death.
But there's like a rectification on it if you bring like korban katat, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it was a shogeg because he didn't intend to tilt it like just because he was so immersed in his study, so by accident he tilted it. He didn't do it intentionally.
Isn't it says in the Masechet Shabbat as well in the first or second page, if I'm not mistaken, that if
he has to bring a korban.
Yeah, but if exactly
if it is a shogeg, he has to bring a. That's right. He has to bring a korban. That's right.
Versus here in the tractate Chulin, righteous men should eat something forbidden.
They shouldn't eat something forbidden.
But it's only punishable by lashes, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Well, this is also a shogeg. We are talking about a shogeg the whole time. We're talking about a shogeg the whole time. The Tosfot says that the distinction between it is that in a chulin, so it is to eat something forbidden. we're talking about eating, yes?
Yeah.
According to this one, I want to say something about what is about written in the Torah, Midrash, something like.
Yes.
Assume there is a prohibition, not to eat this one, not to eat pork or
That's right.
but Hashem permit us to eat, permit us a particular forbidden thing about pork. We can't eat, right? But there is a permission. There some kind of fish. I just forget it, the name of the fish. The brain of the fish is exactly equal to pork, something like that. But I permit it to eat that one. And then something like that. Something,
that's right.
Wool and linen, something like that. We can crossbreed it, something like that. But I permit you to for the tzitzit, something like that. Yeah. In every field there is a Hashem permit us something, but maybe some people don't understand. That's what I want to say.
Very nice, very nice. It's a very, very important midrash. The fish that you're talking about, it was a it is a fish called the shibuta. Shibuta, that it is that it tastes like a pork. It tastes like a pork. It has the same taste. So everything that Hashem forbids, so there's also something that is allowed to. So thank you for sharing it. That is very important. So the Tosfot is actually talking about there's a distinction between to eat something forbidden and to do something forbidden. Now, what do you think is more severe? To eat something non-kosher or to do something that isn't allowed to?
It depends on the situation, because both are permissible if there's like certain circumstances that say danger in life,
right?
Like Machon Meir or something.
The eating is worse.
It's eating too.
Because it becomes
That's
part
right.
of you. Whereas an action, you did it, it's external. It's not part. It's not actually part of you.
That's right. That's right. That is what the Tosfot says. But when one eats something, so it becomes a part of the body. So the Tosfot says, so that is why in the Tractate of Yechulin, there's especially a protection. Hashem saves the righteous people from eating something forbidden, because but it is a severe. Okay, so this is one explanation. And now we are going to come to the manuscript that was saved from Offenbach of Rabbi Meir Simcha Ohr-Somayach, and this is what he writes in his Chidushim in the Talmud. Okay, so who wants to read it? It's in the source free, and this is something very nice. Yeah.
3. Rabbi Meir Simcha wrote in his Chidushim on Talmud and Likutim Shabbat 20b. However, in my opinion, there is a different definition in this. Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha transgressed the decree of the sages, who said one must not read by the light of a lamp. Therefore, it is considered negligence. That is why he was not saved from tilting the lamp. The Talmud in Cholin is referring to the case where one did an action which might have led to a sin. However, he was not careless in his action, nor did neglected taking steps of precaution. In this case, the tzaddik received special protection not to sin. However, in the case of Rabbi Yishmael, he was not careful and he neglected taking steps of precaution. This is why he was not protected. There's no guarantee for even a giant of giants that he will not stumble in serious transgression.
Okay, thank you. So this is something very important that Rabbi Meir Simcha of Edvinsk says, and he says that there is a distinction in the tractate of Echulin. The reason that the tzaddikim they got especially protection, it is because that they did their best in order not to sin. They weren't careless. It just happened. However, in the case of the tractate of Shabbat of Rabbi Ishmael, he was careless because the sages said not to read in the light of the lamp. And he said, I am going to read and I am not going to a tilt. This is something of what he did. If that was careless. And because he didn't take any precaution, he was not saved. He was not saved, and he sinned. So Rabbi Meir Simcha of Yidvinsk learns from here something very, very important. That even the greatest sages, the giants of giants, there is no guarantee that they stumble in a serious transgressions. What one has to do is to always take a precaution, to always take steps to be careful not to come close to the sin. And if one does take these steps, and he does whatever he can in order not to sin, so Hashem saves him. Hashem, he takes care of him. But so this is something very important. It is a very important lesson that nobody has a guarantee that they aren't going to sin. What one could have a guarantee, it is that if you take the right precautions and you do what you're supposed to do, so everything is going to be okay. But you have to take the precautions. So this is just a taste from the Ohr-Somayach on the Talmud, that because but his manuscripts have been saved, they were saved from Offenbach and they were brought over here to Jerusalem, and there they lay for 40 years after the Ohr-Somayach passed away, and then B'siyata Dishmaya they were discovered by Rabbi David Greenwald, who then he published them in his book over here, and because of that we have got the zchut, the merit to study his chidushim from the lost manuscript.
Good.
If I get any answers.